Hey everybody! Welcome to another live tutorial of Lightroom. Today we have an amazing photo I took it in Atlanta, Big Canoe, and I absolutely love this photo because you're going to be seeing it soon, but it's a mirror reflection of trees. So it's very beautiful, it's very delicate, and I'm excited to show you how you can turn a landscape photography into that wow photo that you want to grab the attention of everybody and making it stand out. So I'm Vibrance, and this is Photo TV NYC with live Lightroom tutorials every day at 12 p.m. and at 3 p.m. So let's check it out. Subscribe! Ha! I surprised you there. Subscribe to the channel so you can never miss one of the live tutorials and like the video! Okay, now we're really starting. So this is the photo that I was mentioning to you. It is of trees. It has a mirror reflection on the bottom. It's completely the original photo. It's untouched. I took it with a Canon with a 5D Mark III, and you guys can download this photo and follow along on the tutorial. The download link is down below in the description of this video, or if you have a similar one that you'd like to use, you can also use that and follow along. Usually it would take me around 2 to 3 minutes to adjust and edit a photo like this, but we're going to take our time and go step by step so we can go over the process and especially the thought process of how we can adjust and make subtle adjustments for them to add up to make that photo really go wow, wow, wow. So let's start. So we're going to start with our basic module, with our basic tab, which is under the Develop module. And we're going to open it up. And the first thing that we want to do is do the general adjustments. So the general adjustments include what's in the basic tab, and we want to augment the saturation, the exposure, or diminish it a little bit, or leave as is. But you want to go ahead and play with the slider just to see what type of information your photo has. And for example, if you want to open up your shadows, you're going to be able to see that you have still a lot of information on these trees. I'm going to reset this slider by double-clicking on the exposure. And I think that the exposure for now is quite good, exactly how it's taken. So if you are using and if you did download that photo, I think that we can start with this exposure for now. Let's continue with the adjustments, and afterwards we'll come back to the exposure. I'm going to add some contrast right now to make it pop, makes those blacker, and the highlights come out a little bit more. So when I do add contrast, I see that the trees in the photos, which is all of this area, it does become a little bit darker. I'm going to reset the contrast. Take a look at your screen so you can see how it went a little bit more gray. So I'm going to augment it again, and now that I augmented my contrast, I am going to add some exposure as well. And this is going to balance out a little bit the image to not make it as heavy. I really like the photos that have this mirror reflection. And if you do have the chance to take one of these photos, or if you did have the chance to take it in the past and you have one, let's fix it up right now because we're going to do something really fun at the end. So after we did the exposure and contrast, I'm going to analyze the photo and see if the highlights, shadows, whites, or blacks have to be adjusted. I think that the highlights and the shadows and the whites are okay. I may just play around with the blacks, which is the last of the slider on this section, and make them a little bit darker. Now we can see how the richness starts to pop out just by giving it some blacks. And the black, if you slide it to the left, it's going to make your blacks darker. So that means that your shadows are darker, making them go more to the background and letting that texture of the actual trees come forward to your foreground, giving it that play between foreground, background, and that's going to give you a 3D effect for your viewer, which is just beautiful. Now we're going to come down to our presence, and we're still in our general adjustments, and we're going to add some dehaze. So dehaze is going to be particularly important for this photo, because if we go back to the original, and you can toggle back and forth between your before and after just by clicking on the hotkey / on your keyboard, and it just popped up there on your screen. So if you toggle that, you're going to be able to go before and after. And let's take a look. This is the before, and on the before you can see that it's completely grayed out. Don't blink, take a look at the screen, and there's your after. This is just with a few adjustments that we've done. We're halfway there. So I'm going to add some clarity as well. Clarity is going to give you some sharpness in the midtones, and sharpness in nature and landscape photography means that each and every one of these leaves are going to be individually enhanced, and they're going to have more saturation, more clarity, more sharpness than it originally had. So if I want to reset my clarity just to see where I was and where I am right now, I'm going to double click on the word clarity, and you can see how fuzzy those leaves start to become because it was the original photo. And if you have fuzzy leaves one on top of another, it just might look like a big block of color. So you want to separate those leaves individually, and you don't want to do it manually because it's going to take you many days, months, and years. But you can do it all at the same time using Lightroom by using the clarity, and it's a combination of dehaze, clarity, and texture. Now that we did clarity, and it's just a subtle adjustment, I did dehaze 22 and clarity 33, we're going to come up to our texture, and texture is going to give us a sharpness in the details. And because the leaves are details in this particular photo, this is exactly where we're going to start seeing these leaves and the branches and the trees start to pop out. So I'm just going to go to the before and after, before, after, before, after. So you can see how even the colors are starting to pop out more. We haven't even started the saturation and the vibrance, and even the colors are just starting to pop out because of these adjustments between the contrast, the dehaze, and the texture. So lower down on our basic tab, under the Develop module, we're going to have Vibrance and Saturation. So I want to augment the vibrance and see how it's going to affect my photo. This slider, every slider in Lightroom is going to affect your photo in different ways. This is why I invite you to just experiment, have some fun with Lightroom, and see what type of adjustments and enhancements each of the sliders provides to your particular image that you are adjusting in the moment. So this is the vibrance, and I love how the color of the leaves just starts to pop out. I'm going to reset vibrance by double clicking on the word vibrance, and I'm going to go to saturation and see if I prefer saturation or if I like vibrance. So in this case, because the image is completely neutral on the top and completely neutral on the bottom, saturation slider is actually working very well because it's affecting any and every pixel, 100% of the pixels that have some sort of color in the image. And for this image, all the pixels that have color are right there in that area that I drew with purple. So I'm going to leave saturation, and the saturation is much more sensitive to vibrance. So I'm going to leave it at 30. Now, I would like a little bit of separation in between the red trees, the green trees, and the yellow trees. And for that, we're going to make some selective adjustments. But before doing the selective adjustments, I want to remind you that first we're doing our general adjustments. So general adjustments are all the adjustments that you can do to the entire photo because you want to have the best information, the best photo you can when you're starting, and afterwards go into the fun part, which are the selective adjustments. So going down, I close my basic tab, And we're going to go down to the Detail tab. The Detail tab has the noise reduction over here. And here's where we're going to go in. I want to make sure that I'm 1:1 and not 2:1. Right now, I noticed that I was 2:1, so I'm going to click on 1:1 on my upper left. And I just want to check out how the noise is looking at 100% zoom in my photo. Because this photo was taken when there was tons of light, you can also hit your hotkey I. So if you do press I, it's going to take you to the information of the photo. And if you hit I one more time on Lightroom, you're going to have the ISO. ISO is what's going to determine the noise in your photo. Because 200 ISO is a low ISO, it's considered low, then we're going to see that there's not much noise. So I am going to go 2:2, especially over here. And it's so busy because of the leaves that the leaves actually help with the noise and you can't really see it that much. So I'm just going to go with a very low noise reduction of around 6. If your ISO was 400 or higher or 600, you'd probably have to push that slider a little bit closer to 200 or, to 20 or to 30. I did notice while I was here in my zoom 2:1 that there is some chromatic aberration going on. So chromatic aberration is the error between the pixels red, green, and blue when your camera takes photos. And that causes that the red pixels are not 100% aligned to the green ones, to the blue ones. So you can see right there where I'm drawing that there's a purple ghosting around the tree, and you can in fact see it everywhere. So that was an error in the sensor, and this usually happens when you have a backlit background and a foreground that can give a silhouette to it. So many people don't know this, but this is part of my general adjustments. You can go down to the lens corrections and turn on the tab which is remove chromatic aberration. You're not going to be able to see chromatic aberration at a zoomed out because the chromatic aberration is really in the details. And in order to get that wow photo in your nature photography and landscape, and anyone, in fact, you're going to want to zoom in and make sure that your photo looks as clean as possible so people can see you as the professional photographer that you are. So I just click on that remove chromatic aberration and you can see instantly how the magenta completely dissipated and now became part of the tree. I'm going to toggle on and off this check mark again. Look on your screen, this check mark, which for this photo is particularly important because I want you to see how it affects the chromatic aberration and the difference between being seen as a professional photographer that knows what he's doing. So over here, I'm going to uncheck the remove chromatic aberration, and you can see all of the chromatic aberration over here in purple or magenta. And if you take a look at the left hand side, you're going to see chromatic aberration that is like green and blue. So if you print out this photo in 4:6, totally fine. You print 4:6 inches, totally fine, no chromatic aberration. If you print this 4:6 feet, hello, this is what you're going to start seeing. You definitely do not want that. So here we go. The trick is remove chromatic aberration. You can also, look how beautiful that looks. You can also, if it's not editing the way that you want it, you can also go to manual, to the manual tab, and in defringe, you can adjust that chromatic aberration manually. So I'm going to go back to my profile. I'm going to zoom out now that I know that my image is, well, it's clean because it has the chromatic aberration removed, and I'm going to enable the profile corrections. Now, I have a pretty good feeling that the enable profile correction is going to have a really positive impact on this photo, this particular photo. And I want to bring your attention to this vignetting here and here. And let's see what happens when I press enable profile correction. It completely disappears. So this is a very good photo to explain the enable profile correction. As I mentioned, I took this photo with my Canon camera, and you can press your hotkey I and see which were the settings when I took them. So over here, my settings were 1/125th of a second, my aperture was 5, and my ISO was 200. Now the important part is the millimeters, what my angle was when I took the photo, how much zoom I had on my lens. So right now I had 24, so that's a wide angle shot. When you have a wide angle shot like 24 millimeters or less, you're going to have some distortion in the barrel of the lens that is going to make your image be a little bit distorted. And this vignetting is usually going to happen as well when you have a wide lens angle. So I'm going to enable it, and it completely straightens out the photo, eliminates the distortion, makes the photo as clean as possible. And this is what I refer to when I say that you want to have a clean photo. You want people to know that you know what you're doing, and you want to really show off that photo in the best possible way so people can follow the story that you want to tell with this awesome photo. If you are using this photo, and again, you can download it on the link below, you can download the original photo. It's taken in RAW, and over here in the lens profile, you can see exactly what camera it was, what model lens it has on, and the profile that has been applied, the color profile. Now that I'm happy with this, I'm going to close my lens corrections, and I'm going to start going to the selective adjustments. So the selective adjustments, I'm going to start with my HSL tab. My HSL tab is over here on the right, and it means hue, saturation, and luminescence. So hue, ta-da, saturation, ta-da, luminescence, ta-da. As I said before, I do want to have some differentiation between the red trees, the yellow trees, and the green trees. That way, it's going to add subtly. All of the adjustments are subtle, so it adds up to that wow effect that you're looking for when you have a nature landscape, because it's going to add to the 3D aspect of it when your viewers can see it. So I want to make the hue of this tree more red. So if I go down, you're going to see how it becomes incredibly red. A little too much, right? If you go up, it looks like spring. Yay! Hey, we are in this part of the season right now, right? But I don't want a spring photo, although it looks pretty cool if you want like a mono, or yeah, like a monochromatic look and feel. It looks pretty nice for a nice living room with green and yellow accents. But I want fall right now. So I'm going to go down, and I'm dragging this tool, which is this one over here, up and down because of the little arrows, and that's going to select any color automatically on your photo wherever you put your cursor. So I like my photos like this, but I feel that my yellows are a little bit too orange. So I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to make sure, wait a minute, I'm going to go 1 to 1, 1 to 1. I'm going to zoom in 1 to 1, and I'm going to select my yellow colors. I'm going to select this particular tree, but you can also select this one or another yellow that you'd like. This is the one that I'm going to select, and I want to make it more yellow, less orange. I'm going to remove red, okay? So let's take a look. If I go down, let's take a look at what happened. All of my photos went red. I mean, it does look pretty awesome as well. I like it. I appreciate it. But I'm not going for this look. So I'm going to do Command Z. I'm going to zoom in again. Now I know that if I go down, it goes red. Let's see what happens when I select my yellow, and I'm going to go up, makes a cleaner yellow, like that. So now I have my yellows are more clean and my reds are deeper red. I'm actually going to manually come here to hue and just I'm going to tell Lightroom, any pixel that is red, just make it more red. Let's see what happens. I like it. You can see it over here. So take a look at that. I'm going to reset it. Take a look at this, orange. Now I'm going to go where I was, red. Now you can really start seeing the separation of colors, the separation of trees that you have over here. Let's take a look at it and zoom. You can just take a look at all of the photo and see where you're at. I like it. So now for the reflection part of the photo, we're going to do some masks. And I love using masks because I feel that I have 100% control over each and every edit that you can do in Lightroom. And that's going to help me create an adjustment exactly where I want it to be. So I'm going to go to my hotkey M, and it's going to pop up right there on your screen, M of masks. And that's going to open our mask tab. And I'm going to go with a linear mask, and I'm just going to do a mask from the bottom to the top and see what happens. Right now, I did not reset my adjustments, so you can see that the effect that it has is the exposure has been added 1.28 points. But I actually want to lower it because I want to give it that dramatic feel of the reflection. Because if you can see, this part of the photo is brighter and it has more light to it. It also has more color to it. Now the reflection, which is this part of the photo, is darker. You can start seeing the difference. Just shift your eyes from the top to the bottom really quickly, like that. And you're going to see that the bottom part is darker. So I want to make the bottom part look more like the top part. Now, again, if you did download this photo, you can see that this is the original photo. It's not a mirror effect. This is exactly how it was when we were there. Big canoe in Atlanta. It's amazing. It's beautiful. Those mountains are so spectacular. This was November. So in this adjustment of the mask, I'm going to augment my exposure just a little, and you can see now how the image starts balancing out and looking more similar to the top part and giving it a symmetrical look. I'm going to reset it so you guys can see the before and after. That was resetted. And this is with a little bit more exposure. Again, these adjustments are very subtle. I just went higher up, 0.67. If you're around there, that's fine. You can play around with the photo and see what feels good for you. Now I do want to add as well some contrast because I can see that the contrast on the bottom is less than the contrast on the top. The way that I see that is that I compare the black areas. For example, over here with this one, and if we zoom in, you can drag while in zoom by pressing the space bar. But if you zoom in, you're going to see that this black area is actually less black than the black on the top. And that's because there's more contrast on the top than there is on the bottom. And by practicing, your eye is going to become trained to see the subtle differences in between blacks, in between tones, and that training of the eye is what's going to help you understand which adjustments you can use Lightroom and its tools to give you so you can visualize the photo and actually adjust the photo exactly how you visualized it, giving you 100% control of how your spectators and viewers see your photo. So right now I'm going to make sure that I am in my same mask, and I'm going to just select it. Now I'm there, and I'm not going to give it contrast. I'm going to give it the haze. So dehaze is already giving it some contrast, but it also eliminates some of the gray in the midtones, while contrast only pushes the blacks blacker and the highlights even more highlighter, or however you say it. The dehaze, it's going to make your blacks blacker, it's going to add a touch of color, so it's going to give you a pop of saturation as well, and it's also going to make your highlights even brighter. So it's like a cocktail. This is why we love dehaze. Dehaze is a little cocktail of all the good stuff that Lightroom can give you. It gives you contrast, it gives you saturation, it gives you some mid-tone contrast. It's amazing. Rich blacks, I really love it. But you have to be careful with it, because if you go too much, let's see what happens if you go too much. Your image really starts looking wacky. So I'm just going to go with a subtle effect, and I think that around 12 or 13 is okay for me. And now you can start seeing how the top part is more similar to the bottom part, and it's giving you that symmetrical look, which is the original one that I wanted. Now I'm going to press my hotkey M again. Now I left the masks tab, and I'm in my regular develop module, and I'm going to just switch my eyes really quickly from the top of the sky to the bottom of the sky. So what differences do you see? Do you see any differences between the bottom and the top? Let's just take a few seconds to appreciate it and see if somebody can see the differences. Okay, time's up. So the difference is, for me, in my eyes, I see that the exposure is a little bit less on the bottom and the top is more exposed. And that might be because we did do a mask, which we lowered all of the exposure and made it darker on the bottom. So if I do want to make it at the same tone, the same tonality that the top has, I'm just going to add another mask, a second mask, by going and pressing M and augmenting my exposure. I'm going to reset it, and I'm just going to augment my exposure a little bit, and that's all that it takes. 0.5, around 0.5, and I'm going to lower my saturation as well, because I do see some blue and green going on here, which I don't have on the top. And my intention for this photo is for it to look as symmetrical as it possibly can. So I'm going to eliminate some of the saturation, and now you can see that with the subtle adjustment, it looks much closer to the top part. I'm going to delete this mask, and now you can see really the effect that this mask has. I'm toggling it on and off. And you can just train your eye so you guys can see it as well, and you can shift your eyes from the top to the bottom, top to the bottom, top to the bottom, just really quickly, and appreciate the moment and see what it is that you see, to take and sense and make your eye more sensible to the tiny adjustments that you can start doing yourselves. And that, my friend, is only practice that is going to take you there. So now I take a look at all of my image. There is a quick keyword, which is Tab and Shift, and it just popped up on your screen. This hotkey is going to let us open up the image as big as possible without any tools whatsoever. And I love seeing it like this because it gives me an immersive experience of this photo. What I like most about this photo are these two trees, this one and this one, which just have a play a symmetrical aspect like this, as well as on the horizontal. So this is what makes this photo really special, and the little surprise that I had for you at the end is that with Command and right bracket, you'll be able to rotate your image and have a fine art image right there. If you'd like, you can change the colors, you can download this photo and just play around with it, have some fun. You can also press Command bracket, right bracket again, and have the reflection on the top, and you can see that the reflection if you see the image like this, you can see that we have much more greens on the top Rather than at the bottom, we have more yellows. And it's just going to give you a new and fresh perspective on the photo. You can also do it one more time and it gives you another vertical. Or just leave it original as is. And if you press Shift Tab once more, you're going to be able to open all of your tools again. And let's just take a look at the before. Yep, this is where we were, this horrible vignetting. Now everybody can see it. Maybe you weren't able to see it at the beginning, but now all of my attention comes to this horrible vignetting over here. And we look at the after, and it looks so much nicer, so much cleaner, so peaceful. Everybody just wants to be there. So go ahead, have fun. Everybody, remember to subscribe to this channel so you can learn more, follow along, and like this photo. I'll see you guys in the next live tutorial tomorrow at 12 p.m. Bye everybody, thanks for watching. Hey, if you have a question, just write it down in the comments. We'll get back to you.